Country music has always given us heroes, voices that carried our heartbreak and our hope. Yet many of those same icons revealed a darker side once the applause faded. Their fame often magnified their flaws, and the charm that won over audiences sometimes hid arrogance, cruelty, or betrayal. These are the 13 worst jerks in country music history you'll regret loving. Get ready for untold stories, messy feuds, and the real truth behind country legends whose behavior was far uglier than their music ever let on. This is the side of country music you were never supposed to hear. Let's start the countdown. Number 13, Blake Shelton's Big Mouth. Blake Shelton is one of modern country's biggest stars, but he's also courted backlash with a run of old, now-deleted tweets that many fans found offensive. In 2016, after the posts resurfaced, he issued a public apology and acknowledged his jokes could be inappropriate and immature, while insisting they weren't meant to be hateful. But the damage was done. For years, Blake had built a career on his down-home charm, the wisecracking judge on The Voice, the small-town Oklahoma boy who seemed approachable despite his fame. Yet the resurfaced tweets cracked that image wide open. Fans who once laughed along with his humor now saw a different side. A superstar who could be careless with his platform and insensitive to the people who put him there. The controversy bled into his personal life as well. His very public divorce from Miranda Lambert, followed by his high-profile relationship with Gwen Stefani, kept him at the center of tabloid drama. Rumors of betrayal and infidelity left many fans questioning whether the Blake they thought they knew was ever real. Was he truly the lovable jokester, or just another arrogant star who believed he was untouchable? The truth lies somewhere in between. Shelton continues to fill arenas and top charts, proof that millions still love him. But his careless words and cocky attitude left a permanent mark on his reputation. What began as a series of rumors and whispers about his big mouth turned into undeniable fact. Blake Shelton could be as much of a jerk as he was a superstar. Number 12, Jason Aldean's controversial ego. Jason Aldean's career came under scrutiny in 2012 when photos showed him getting affectionate with Brittany Kerr while he was still married. He apologized publicly, later divorced, and eventually married Kerr. The scandal damaged his family man image and fueled whispers that Aldean valued his ego above loyalty. But it wasn't the last controversy to follow him. In 2023, his song and video Try That in a small town sparked national outrage. Filmed in front of a Tennessee courthouse tied to a dark racial history, the video was condemned for its imagery and message. Aldean brushed off the criticism, claiming it was about unity and small-town pride, but for many, it felt like arrogance masquerading as defiance. The backlash reached far beyond Nashville. Mainstream outlets covered the story, protesters showed up at his concerts, and social media exploded with debates about whether Aldean was tone-deaf or deliberately provocative. His refusal to apologize or even acknowledge the hurt it caused only deepened the sense that Aldean saw himself as untouchable. Meanwhile, fans who once swooned over Aldean's swagger began to question whether his so-called authenticity was really just entitlement in disguise. His defenders called him fearless, but critics saw a man more concerned with defending his pride than reflecting on the consequences of his actions. Jason Aldean remains a chart-topping powerhouse, but his reputation has been permanently stained. The scandals revealed not just mistakes, but a pattern of cavalier arrogance that turned one of country's biggest stars into one of its most divisive figures. Number 11, Toby Keith's combative streak. Toby Keith built a brand on bravado, and sometimes the persona bled into public feuds, most famously with the Chick's Natalie Maines after she criticized his post-9/11 anthem. He escalated the spat with a doctored on-screen image at shows. Maines fired back on live TV with a pointed t-shirt. Years later, Keith said he'd moved past the fight. Still, the episode left a mark, cementing his image, fairly or not, as a guy who could let pride and payback run the show. But the Chick's feud wasn't the only time Toby's combative streak came through. Industry insiders often described him as controlling, unwilling to compromise, and quick to cut ties with collaborators who didn't bow to his authority. His blunt interviews, often laced with bravado, gave fans the sense of a no-nonsense patriot. But to others, they revealed a man who relished conflict more than cooperation. Even in his music, that confrontational attitude shone through. Songs like Courtesy of the Red, White and Blue won him die-hard fans, but alienated critics who accused him of chest-thumping nationalism. Rather than bridge divides, Toby seemed to thrive on them, turning every critic into another target of his defiance. For fans who saw him as a symbol of American pride, the arrogance was forgivable, but for many others, it painted him as a bully who confused swagger with authenticity. Toby Keith's career is filled with hits, but it's also filled with fights, leaving behind the legacy of a star who too often let ego and combativeness overshadow the music itself. Number 10. Sturgill Simpson's open contempt. A brilliant contrarian, Sturgill Simpson has often aimed his sharpest barbs at country's power structure. In 2017, he busked outside the CMA Awards with a guitar case for the ACLU and delivered a mock acceptance speech, railing about politics and the industry from the sidewalk as the show went on inside. To some, that made him a truth-telling outsider. To others, it read as scorched earth contempt for the very audience that lifted him up. Simpson's dismissal of Nashville institutions won him credibility with rebellious fans, but burned bridges with executives and peers. His refusal to play the game left many admiring his courage, but questioning his judgment. Sturgill never cared about those questions, and that very contempt defined him. For his critics, it proved that sometimes rebellion is just arrogance by another name, but contempt has consequences. When Simpson openly mocked award shows and scoffed at his peers, some fans cheered, while others walked away. Even sympathetic industry insiders admitted his hostility made him difficult to work with, if not impossible. Instead of using his platform to build bridges, he often set them on fire, isolating himself further from the community he claimed to stand for. In the end, Sturgill's legacy is as polarizing as his music is innovative. For every fan who sees him as a rebel hero, there are others who see a man consumed by bitterness, too eager to tear down rather than build up. His contempt may have cemented his place as an outsider, but it also earned him a reputation as one of country's biggest jerks. Number 9. Merle Haggard's mean streak. Merle Haggard embodied the working man poet and the hard-living contradictions that came with it. He spoke candidly about his addictions and piled up divorces, and those close to him described a temper that could cut deep. The same raw honesty that made his songs immortal sometimes made his personal life combustible. Fans loved the voice. Families and bandmates often bore the cost. Haggard himself admitted to selfishness and cruelty in his younger years, reflecting in later interviews that he left behind scars that never healed. He softened with age, finding peace and redemption, but the stories from those who lived with him painted a picture of a man whose charm on stage could not always hide his flaws off it. The reputation followed him throughout his life. Behind the outlaw image and legendary catalog was a man who could be cold, distant, and sometimes brutal to those who depended on him most. For all the grit in his music, there was grit in his personal life as well. Grit that cut the people around him. Merle Haggard remains a giant of country music, but his mean streak ensured that his story will always be remembered as a mix of brilliance and cruelty. Number 8. Waylon Jennings' outlaw arrogance. Waylon's outlaw stance liberated country music, but it also came with collateral damage. By his own accounts, drugs and ego made him a nightmare to manage and a strain to work with. He could be magnetic on stage and mercilessly difficult off it. The legend is undeniable. So is the wreckage he left in the long shadow of that legend. Jennings confessed later in life that his arrogance and addictions cost him dearly. Friends lost, opportunities squandered, and years wasted in a haze. His music changed country forever, but those closest to him bore the cost of his destructive choices. His outlaw legacy came not just from rebellion, but from the chaos he left behind. Stories from his bandmates and friends tell of marathon drug binges, missed shows, and explosive fights that pushed people away. The same fire that fueled his music often burned too hot in his personal life, leaving scorched earth in its wake. Fans adored the rebel image, but those inside his circle often saw a man consumed by ego and recklessness. Waylon Jennings will always be remembered as one of the architects of outlaw country, but his arrogance and addictions left scars as deep as his songs. He gave the genre freedom, but he also gave those closest to him pain, making his legacy as complicated as it is legendary. Number 7. George Jones's cruel addictions. George Jones's voice could stop time, but his alcoholism stopped shows. So often he earned the nickname No-Show Jones. He later confessed to desperate stunts, including that infamous lawnmower ride in pursuit of another bottle. The music was sublime. The behavior was, at times, heartbreaking for fans and devastating for those who loved him. Jones's addictions weren't just a burden on his career. They left lasting scars on his marriages, most famously with Tammy Wynette. Their volatile union became a country music soap opera filled with fights, disappearances, and heartbreak. For Wynette and others close to him, life with Jones was often a nightmare of broken promises and broken bottles. The consequences spread beyond his personal life. Fans would travel hours to see him, only to discover he never showed up. Promoters lost money, bandmates lost patience, and George lost the trust of thousands who loved his music. The same voice that could heal a heart could also shatter one when he failed to deliver. Later in life, Jones achieved sobriety and reflected openly about the pain he caused. Redemption softened his legacy, but the scars remained. For decades, his cruelty under the influence made him a man adored on the radio and feared at home. His story proves that even the greatest singers can also be the greatest jerks when their demons go unchecked. Number 6. Kenny Chesney's public scrutiny. Kenny Chesney's beach bro image rarely ruffles feathers, but controversy has found him. In 2000, a horse-related misunderstanding at a New York police event led to his and Tim McGraw's arrests. Both were later acquitted. His whirlwind 2005 marriage to Renee Zellweger ended in an annulment that cited fraud, fueling gossip that both later pushed back on publicly. He remains a stadium draw, but the headlines reminded fans that even the mellowest stars can become tabloid targets. Chesney has mostly steered clear of major scandals since, but the rumors around his short-lived marriage continue to haunt him. For a man whose brand is all about easy living, the whispers of entitlement and selfishness show that even country's most laid-back superstar has shadows that fans regret learning about. Those whispers only grew louder in the years following. Was the fraud annulment a polite cover-up for something deeper, or simply Hollywood's spin on a brief mistake? Chesney avoided giving details, preferring to let the storm pass, but the silence only fueled speculation. For some fans, it was a reminder that his songs of escape and paradise might be more fantasy than reflection of his real life. In the end, Kenny Chesney remains one of country's biggest concert draws, but the controversies left a dent in his clean image. Behind the easygoing persona was a man who, at least for a time, appeared entitled and dismissive, proving that even country's most carefree star could still show his jerk side. Number 5. Johnny Paycheck's violent downfall. Johnny Paycheck rose to fame on the back of working-class anthems like Take This Job and Shove It, becoming a voice for those tired of the grind. But behind his outlaw bravado lay a darker truth. His career was marked by arrests, substance abuse, and violent behavior that tarnished his music with scandal. The most infamous incident came in 1985, when Paycheck shot a man in the head during a barroom argument over food. Though the victim survived, Paycheck was convicted of aggravated assault and spent years in prison. The story shocked fans, confirming long whispered rumors that his wild lifestyle was spiraling out of control. His addictions only deepened the chaos. Bandmates told of missed shows, erratic behavior, and explosive outbursts that made him nearly impossible to work with. Fans who once adored his defiant anthems began to see the man himself as reckless and cruel. Paycheck eventually found faith and sobriety late in life, but by then the damage was done. His legacy as a country star will always carry the shadow of his violent temper, leaving him remembered not just as a working-class hero, but as one of country's most notorious jerks. Number 4. Tammy Wynette's controlling partner, George Ritchie. Producer-songwriter George Ritchie isn't a household name, but he looms large in Tammy Wynette's story. In later years, Wynette's daughters alleged he isolated and emotionally abused their mother, and even suggested her infamous kidnapping account was staged. Ritchie denied abusing Tammy during his lifetime, and the full truth remains disputed, but the family's allegations reshaped how many fans view his role in her life. The whispers about Ritchie added a darker dimension to Tammy's story. Her public image as the First Lady of country music hid a home life that may have been shaped by manipulation and cruelty. Fans who adored Tammy Wynette's voice were left to grapple with the reality that behind the scenes, one of country's greatest stars may have lived under the shadow of a controlling partner. Those allegations gained more weight after Tammy's death in 1998, when her daughters spoke out in detail about the atmosphere of fear and control they believed Ritchie maintained. The man who was supposed to protect and nurture her career was instead accused of exploiting it. While Ritchie continued to deny any wrongdoing, the stories left fans with a sour truth. Tammy Wynette's tragedies may not have been just bad luck, but the result of living with a man who thrived on control. In the end, George Ritchie's reputation is tied forever to Tammy's pain. For fans, it's a betrayal to learn that behind the soaring ballads was a woman possibly trapped in an abusive marriage. His legacy is not the music he wrote, but the shadow he cast over one of country music's most beloved stars. Number 3. Spade Cooley's monstrous crime. Western swing bandleader Spade Cooley's fall from grace was total and deserved. He was convicted of murdering his wife in 1961. The case was brutal and public, and it obliterated his career. Any nostalgia for his music is forever shadowed by the horror of his crime. The Cooley case shook country and Western audiences to their core. Fans who once danced to his upbeat music were forced to reckon with the monstrous truth of the man behind it. His name, once associated with glamour and swing, became a byword for cruelty and violence. The worst rumor about him proved to be true, and it destroyed him. What made the case even more disturbing was the testimony that revealed years of jealousy, abuse, and threats leading up to the murder. His daughter, who witnessed the crime, carried that trauma for the rest of her life, a chilling reminder of the horror hidden behind Cooley's stage persona. For the industry, it was a wake-up call that even its brightest stars could harbor darkness beyond imagination. Spade Cooley's story is no longer about music. It's about the danger of unchecked ego and rage. His name is remembered not for Western swing, but for one of the most monstrous crimes in American music history. Number 2. Glen Campbell's volatile relationship. Glen Campbell's talent was towering, but his offstage life could be chaotic. His early 80s relationship with Tanya Tucker was famously turbulent. In Tucker's memoir, she alleged physical altercations during a period when both struggled with substance abuse. Campbell later spoke of that time as "my insanity," and in later years pursued sobriety and reconciliation with family. The music endures, but the memories for those involved are complicated. That stormy period remains a dark mark on Campbell's life story. Tucker herself has admitted she still carries scars from the experience. For fans, it was a reminder that even the most charming stars could harbor dangerous flaws. Campbell's legacy may be his music, but the truth of his cruelty during those years cannot be erased. The chaos of that relationship spilled into the tabloids, giving the public a glimpse of the man behind the songs. Tucker was barely out of her teens, while Campbell was nearly 2 decades older, adding to the sense of imbalance and danger. Their fights became infamous, with both later admitting the relationship nearly destroyed them. While Campbell eventually found peace in his later years, the scars from that time remain, forever shaping how fans and historians view his story. Glen Campbell may be remembered for hits like Rhinestone Cowboy, but the volatile years with Tanya Tucker remain a stain on his legacy. It is proof that even the brightest voices in country music can carry shadows that audiences never forget. Number 1. Hank Williams Sr.'s destructive selfishness. Hank Williams carried country music into the modern era and carried chaos into the lives around him. Infidelity, addiction, and unreliability burned through marriages and friendships before his death at 29. The songs are immortal. The man behind them left a trail of hurt that fans reckoned with only after the final curtain. Stories from his short life reveal just how destructive his selfishness could be. His wife Audrey endured betrayal after betrayal, and his bandmates often suffered when Hank failed to show up or fell apart mid-performance. Behind every brilliant lyric was a man unraveling, leaving heartbreak in his wake. For all his genius, Hank Williams Sr. left behind a legacy as tragic as it was timeless. The fallout from his behavior shaped not just his own story, but the entire genre. His unreliability on stage became legendary. Fans sometimes waited hours only to be disappointed. His constant infidelity fractured his family and left behind scars that outlived him. By the time of his death, Hank had alienated nearly everyone close to him, leaving only the music to redeem his memory. Hank Williams Sr. will always be remembered as one of country's greatest voices, but also as one of its greatest tragedies. His selfishness destroyed his relationships and consumed his life, proving that even the brightest flames can burn the people closest to them. Which of these country legends do you think was the biggest jerk? We want to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from country music's hidden past. And before you go, check out the other videos on your screen. You won't want to miss them.